So today I'm breaking down Francesca's storyline, and this might be a hot take, but this is not my favorite book. I'll try to be fair, but you need to know that up front. A big reason why is kind of the men in the book, but I'll get into that in a little bit. But the book starts with Francesca and John already married, and I want to be really clear that they do have a very loving, genuine relationship. And I say that because now we have to talk about Michael. So Michael is Michaela on the show, and Michael and John are cousins, but they're basically brothers because they're so close. And because they're so close, Michael's always around, and him and Francesca end up becoming best friends. So spoiler alert, John ends up passing away in the story, and it kind of happens really suddenly, and he wasn't sick or anything, and it devastates both Michael and Francesca. And then Michael inherits John's title, and this is kind of where the book gets a little uncomfortable, at least for me. Because Michael has been in love with Francesca since the moment he first saw her, which was shortly before she married John. Now, he's never acted on it, but the guilt and the longing, it's always been there, and you can really feel it in the books. Now, here's the thing about a Bridgerton book. They follow a formula. In every book, there is someone who has to be yearning. The yearning is the engine of the story, and that usually works. But in Francesca's book, when the person doing the yearning is her husband that passed away's basically brother, it feels a little weird at times. But anyway, while Francesca is grieving, everyone around her becomes really focused on one question, and that's, is she pregnant? Because if she is, that means the child would inherit her late husband's title instead of Michael. So this is a trigger warning for pregnancy loss. Francesca is pregnant, but then she miscarries. So in a very short span of time, she loses her husband and then she loses her child. So this is kind of where the story starts to spiral, because Francesca is really grieving and feeling very lonely, and Michael is inheriting her husband's title, and he's sitting on these big feelings that he refuses to deal with. And then he just decides to ghost her. He literally disappears while she's going through one of the hardest moments of her life. And it's really because he does not know how to support her or how to deal with his feelings for her, because he feels super guilty that he even has feelings for her, and he's also grieving. From his perspective, he's inheriting John's title, he's inheriting his name, his home, and he feels kind of disgusted that even though he has all these things, he wants his wife. So instead of dealing with those feelings, he decides it's best to just move to India. And from Francesca's point of view, she lost her husband, she lost her child, and now she's losing her best friend. Okay, so 4 years later, Michael finally comes back, and by this point, Francesca has made a decision that she wants a baby, and she's not looking for romance, she's looking for a husband so she can have that child. So she goes back to London, ready to remarry, but very strategically. She's not really looking for romance. She's just looking for someone that kind of makes sense on paper. And Michael is super jealous watching her be courted by other men. So Michael's watching her at all these parties, and he's drinking and he's depressed. And he is just so locked in on what she's doing that he notices at one of the parties that she's not around. So he goes looking for her, and he sees her outside with a man who's forcing himself on her, and he steps in to help her out. So after he rescues her later that night, she thanks him, and one thing leads to another, and they kiss, and Francesca immediately flees to Scotland like she just committed a crime. She is shocked that she could even be catching feelings for Michael at all. And then Michael feels awful after the kiss and immediately goes to a brothel, and he kind of hates the vibes because all he could think about is Francesca. So he ends up going to another bar, and at that bar he runs into Colin Bridgerton, and Colin Bridgerton tells him that there's no reason he can't marry Francesca, and he casually mentions that he's marrying Penelope, and that it would give Michael an excuse to go to Scotland so that he could share that information with Francesca. So Michael shows up to tell Francesca about the wedding, and then immediately gets to the point, and he says he's been thinking a lot about what happened in London, referencing the kiss, and that because of the kiss, everything has changed. And he says, and this is verbatim from the book, "I believe we should marry. And Francesca's like, what? And Michael launches into like a Bridgerton equivalent of an eighth grade PowerPoint presentation. And he literally starts counting the reasons why they should get married. And he's like, you wouldn't have to move. You can keep your name and title. I can give you children. I'll be respectful to you. And then Francesca's like, so what are you getting out of this? And he's like, well, you have knowledge of how to run the estate. And also, I know you won't stray. We're romantic. So what follows is a lot of emotional back and forth, but it really is a beautiful story about accepting love. And I think for Francesca, it's about accepting love after loss. And then for Michael, it's about accepting the love that you deserve. And he proposes to Francesca maybe 2-3 more times after this until he gets it right, but I think he works really hard to kind of earn her love, and also deserve the love that she gives. And it is a heavier book. It's really not like the other books in the series, and I don't know how they're going to adapt it, but all I could say is good luck, Netflix. Good luck.